Skryre's most powerful engineers meld sorcery and science until the two are indivisible. These individuals are called Warlock Engineers, and they are more akin to walking arsenals than to Skaven. Warp energy crackles from the blades that emerge from the flesh in their arms, and their rat-like bodies are covered in all manner of bizarre artifice. Tubes and wires pulse and buzz with unholy life as they connect the engineer to his harness and its fantastic apparatus. Fearful and horrible indeed is Skryre's technology, if it allows such an unholy alliance of flesh and machine. Welcome back, my friends. Today is a great day. Age of Sigmar 4th edition has been released. Well, it was released a few weeks ago. But I just finished my favorite model from the Skaventide set, and this is a great time to talk about the most fun clan of the Skaven, Clan Skryre. So with that, let's dive into their battle tome. The Skaven are cunning creatures, capable of great feats of ingenuity. Amongst their teeming masses, there are no greater or deranged inventors than the warlocks of Clan Skryre, who craft deadly engines of Skaven supremacy for the highest bidder. There are vast numbers of Skryre clans scattered across the mortal realms, varying from small bands of warlock engineers and their scurrying servants to massive, millions-strong fortified burrows. They gnaw out their workshop spaces inside craggy mountains or rumbling volcanoes, beneath ruined cities, or through the innards of colossal ancient mechanisms that grind and churn beneath the surface of the realms. These factory burrows are hellish places, crammed with spinning gears, roaring furnaces, clanking pistons, and copper-coiled tubes that dance with caged green lightning. Unstable alchemical apparatus bubbles amongst the teetering crates of machine parts and heaps of explosive munitions. The weird machines of the laboratory burrows require vast amounts of power, generated by mechanisms such as slave gangs running inside huge wooden wheels, lead pipes sucking the vitality from slowly dying volcanoes, titanic brass batteries powered by the bubbling remains of the cursed dead, and countless other foul innovations. Barely controlled chaos reigns as construction lines churn out lethal devices at a terrifying pace. Vast and strange are the engines of war created by these nightmarish factories, and though the Clan Skryre sell many of their contraptions to the highest bidder, they always keep the best weapons for themselves. The sale of their surplus arsenals has made many of the Clan Skryre very rich, in turn allowing them to afford ever more excessive workshops and weapons. Some of the most successful Skryre clans possess weapons of incredible power, from the city-sized parasite engines of Clan Zik to the giant warp lightning cannons that adorn the mountainous stronghold of Clan Skryre. Clans that have built such terrifying contraptions are feared and hated in equal measure by the rest of Skavendom. When one of the Clan Skryre sends its swarms to war, its engineers are divided into Warpcog convocations. These formations are led by swaggering arch-warlocks, and comprise numerous engine covens that specialize in particular types of mechanized warfare. The Whirlblade Threshik, for example, build great rumbling war machines covered in slicing blades that crush and hack the foe to bloody ruin. The Goutfire Scorch, meanwhile, create hideous fire throwers, while the Arcspark Voltic fashion batteries of lightning cannons. While all Clan Skryre share a strong cultural link, each has its own peculiarities and pet obsessions. Even within Blight City itself, there are hundreds of Clan Skryre, from the self-avowed pyromaniacs of Clan Crackle to the warlock bombardiers of Clan Shivik, who specialized in long-range artillery with indirect firing arcs, and the politically conniving Clan Stactic, who manufacture listening devices, arcanospectral spy goggles, and more for sale to other clans of Blight City. Clan Ezek is by far the largest of the Clan Skryre to lurk at the heart of Skavendom, and with its High Archwarlock Scratch sitting in the coveted first seat of the Council of 13, the banner of Skryre Clan Ezek flies above more fortress warrens and laboratory burrows by day. The Clan Skryre maintain plenty of strongholds beyond the bounds of Blight City. Grasping and covetous, the Clan Skryre use monstrous ether bores and scrabble drills to drive gnawholes into every mortal realm in search of technologies, warpstone, and more recently, realmstone to steal. In Akshi, for example, the scavenge covens of Clan Frick sally out from their burrows beneath the Ventruscan hills. They pick over the ruin of others' battlefields, break into their enemies' strongholds, and release billowing clouds of poisoned wind in the name of picking the dead clean of every fragment of metal and technology they can acquire. Their warrens are piled with mountains of stolen spoils, magnificent fragments of ancient artifacts, heaped in with tangles of scrap in undiscerning profusion. Slave gangs pick over these huge mounds of detritus night and day, sorting the dross to be melted down for reuse, and murdering one another for choice finds, to bring to the warlocks in the hopes of being rewarded with their freedom. By comparison, Clan Ruckrit, whose stronghold of Grindfang lies beneath Gur's ravenous steppes, are swift and direct. Their Whirlblade Threshik engine covens assemble entire spearheads of Doomwheels and Doomflayers that rumble across the plains in bladed convoys, crushing everything in their path. Behind them come crawl burrows, mobile fortress workshops into which go the spoils of war, and down whose ramps roll fresh waves of anarchic assault vehicles. Archwarlock Vricht sat in his huge brass throne at the heart of his laboratory burrow. He was surrounded by the bedlam of heavy industry, the wails of slaves, and the hiss and thunder of steam and pistons. He sneered down at the engineers prostrating themselves before him. Vricht drummed his talons on the arms of the throne and twitched his barbed tail as he waited for the warlocks to finish fawning, his patience frayed by the moment.
"Enough!"
he screeched.
"Who speaks for the Archspark Voltic?"
After a quick bout of snarling and jostling, the lightning engineers shoved one of their number forward. He peered up at Vricht from behind thick-lensed goggles, doing his best to puff himself up despite his obvious terror. The engineer was actually shaking.
"I, Warlock Engineer Kratchik, speak for, and who for the Whirlblade Threshik?"
snarled Vricht, cutting the nervous Skaven off. A burly warlock bombardier pushed his way to the front of his engine coven's delegation, snapping viciously at another rat man who tried to preempt him.
"Warlock Bombardier Blacktail speaks. O mighty great Archwarlock,"
he growled, snout jutting.
"You have bring inventions, yes?"
asked Vricht.
"You show them now. Impress me and I will give you many much warp tokens and slaves for your workshops. Waste fritter my time."
Vricht left the statement hanging and gestured with one hand claw. The engineer's attention was drawn to a space amongst the mayhem of the laboratory that was even now being cleared as slave gangs dragged workbenches and smoke-belching mechanisms out of the way. Revealed were 13 brass poles that jutted from the burrow floor some 100 yards distant. Lashed to each was a struggling figure, bloodied and beaten, but still clad in the rags of the gout-fire-scorched engine coven. It brightened Vrick's mood somewhat to see these fools offered up as test subjects. They had protested of sabotage when their fire-belcher engine blew up during a demonstration earlier that day, but their whining meant little to Vrick. Whether incompetence or dupes, either way, these failed engineers were useless to him for anything other than target practice. The two engine covens hurried to obey his command, pulling dirty tarps off the devices they had brought. Arcspark Voltic had created some kind of multi-barreled lightning artillery piece, smaller than a warp lightning cannon, but with a fiercely destructive look to it. However, they were still busy themselves with frantic preparations when Whirlblade Threshik hauled their own device up to the firing line. Carried by a pair of Skaven, the Whirlblade Threshik weapon consisted mainly of a huge sprung throwing arm. Vrick intuited that at a trigger pull, that arm would swing back and snatch a foot-wide circular blade from the rack lashed to the other crew rat's back before springing forward again and hurling the blade like a huge Eshin throwing star.
Warblade Threshik, offer gifts the Rip Flanger,
announced Warlock Bombardier Blacktail.
Ready, swift, quick, yes. Long ranged, shoots fast and kills all.
With that, the weapon's firer snapped his goggles into place, cringed slightly, and then pulled the trigger. The arm snapped back, grabbed a blade, and flung it with tremendous force. Arch-Warlock Vrick nodded appreciatively as the projectile sang through the air into a trussed and screeching target. The blade sliced its victim in half at the waist, with enough force left over to cut through the pole he was bound to. Metal, twitching flesh, and slippery innards splattered the burrow floor.
Again,
snapped Warlock Bombardier Blacktail, his muzzle twisting into an arrogant grin as the Rip Flanger snatched 3 more blades in quick succession and threw them. 2 hit their intended target, while the third span on a carome from the piston press and mow down several luckless slaves. Impressive, thought Vrick. And surely the victor, especially as the Arcspark Voltic had yet to even, the thought was cut off as there came a crackling roar and a blast of lurid green light. Vrick was blinded and his fur stood on end. There was another blast, and another, and yet another. At last the din stopped, blinking furiously. Crouched in his throne and brandishing his warpfire projector, Vrick sought the source of the terrifying explosions. As his sight cleared, he saw that, where the Whirlblade Threshik delegation had stood, there was now naught but blackened earth and the twisted remains of charred corpses. The Rip Flanger had been reduced to smoking wreckage. Gaping, Vrick stared at the multi-barreled lightning cannon of Arcspark Voltic. It was glowing as it cooled, and its crew were chittering with glee as they hurried to swap the blackened warpstone power core for a new one. His feigned nerves now nowhere to be seen, Warlock Engineer Kratchik spat on the remains of his former rivals.
The Rip Flanger was fast, yes, but crude. And look, almighty Arch-Warlock, how flimsy it was. Not like the Warpbreaker cannon of Arcspark Voltic. Surely, O great most mighty, there can be only one victor here.
Vrick sniffed, lowering himself back into his throne with as much dignity as he could muster.
Good, Cratchit. Most very impressive. But there are still test targets.
The engineer leered his understanding and shrieked orders at his comrades. Surely, Vrick thought with dawning paranoia, that Warlock Engineer would expect rewards and advancement. He had shown cunning, promise, and ambition, entirely too much of all 3. Even as the cannon fired again, the Archwarlock was already planning how to best send his agents to Cratchit's workshop to steal the weapon's plans and prepare an accident for him. The Warbreaker cannon was magnificent, Vrick thought, and he must have it. Its inventor, he could do without. And my friends, with that, let's go to the spinny shots. Thank you all once again for joining me on this painting adventure, as I do a test paint for the new color scheme that I'm going to be giving all of my Skaven on a full-blown army repaint, which is crazy, I know, for Skaven. But if you'd like to join me on this adventure, be sure to hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/drinkyourpaintwaterlive. The link to that is down in the description. And also give me a subscribe on here on YouTube. All of that is mega appreciated. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one.